Hello everyone and welcome to the class. This is David A. Cox with TechTalkAmerica.com, and today I'm going to be showing you all of the newest features that you're going to find in the latest operating system for the Mac, known as OS X El Capitan. Now, to help you digest this information, for those of you who wish to do so, I have created a very simple two-page clean PDF that you can download. It's basically just all of my notes. It's what I have on my desk next to me when I teach this class live. So if you would like to download that, I'm making it available to all of you for free. You will find a link to that in the description of this video. Also, if you wish to review this video later on, maybe to go over parts that you missed, you will also find in the notes that I am including the time code for the various chapters. That way you can skip ahead to whatever parts you really care about. Let's start off with going over the new features you'll find in Apple Mail. You'll have the same multi-touch gestures that you have on your iPhone or iPad. So for example, this message here, let's say I want to preserve it and I want to mark it as unread. I can swipe with two fingers on my trackpad from left to right, and I'll get this little box that says mark as unread. And when I click on that, just like you can on the iPhone and iPad, that little blue dot comes back to indicate that it's an unread message. Also, if I swipe the opposite way, from right to left, once again with two fingers, I get a trash button. If you do a much more dramatic movement, you can just wipe out that message altogether. But I'm not going to do that because I'm going to end up using this message. The other feature I want to show you here, love this one, for those of you who use a calendar, you're going to like this one too, is that now there's much better integration between the calendar program and the mail program. So for example, in this message where it says, do you want to meet tomorrow for lunch? It detects this language. It looks at dates. And so what it's done is it says one event found in this email, and by simply clicking add over here at the top right corner, just by clicking on that, I can add this event into my calendar and say lunch with Johnny and hit add to calendar. Very simple. The next feature I want to show you is one that I thought was actually a bug in the last operating system, and they never really corrected it. They just made it a quote-unquote new feature in this one. So for those of you out there who like using the Apple Mail program in full screen mode like I do, one of the things that may have frustrated you is the fact that you cannot minimize a message until now. So if I'm composing a message and I need to fetch information from a different email, whether it's an address, maybe some text, or even a photo, I can now click outside of this message and it minimizes down here to the very bottom of the screen. The other way you can also do that is hitting the little yellow dot here will actually do the same thing. So let's say I need to go into this message and I want to grab this graphic. I can literally click it and drag it and drop it right here into this message, and it's preserved just like that. You can do the same thing with text. So let's say I want to grab this text. I can highlight it with my cursor, click it, and drag it just down. Really, as soon as you start to drag it down, it's going to pull it into that new message, and there it is, just like that. Another great feature for those of you with ADD, if you start writing a message and then realize you have another message you have to also start writing, you now have tabbed emails. So I can create multiple new messages at the same time. The easiest way to do this is hit Command N. That'll create a new message. So you can see if I go over here, I have my old email. If I click over here, I have my new email. The next thing I want to show you are a few very simple changes to the Photos app, starting with recent contacts. So let's say I have just corresponded with someone and now I want to send them a photo. Well, the Mac remembers that history. So let's say I have this little selfie here I took at the Cape Cod National Seashore. I want to share it with someone who I just talked to. I can now go to the share button, and in addition to the normal options that you'd have up here, it'll also look for recent contacts you've corresponded with. So you can just simply click on that person's name or email address and send them an email with the attached photo. The other feature I want to show you here is that, and this is handy for a not so obvious reason. So if you're like me, I accidentally take screenshots on my phone, iPad, and Apple Watch all the time. It just happens, especially if I'm doing a hard reset on any of those devices. It's kind of easy to accidentally do that. Well, if you look over here on the left-hand side, there's now a category for screenshots. So if you have accidentally cluttered your photo library with a ton of accidental screenshots, you can now very quickly click on them, secondary click, and hit delete. Just something I thought you all might want to know. The next feature is something that I can kind of show you. I can't really demo it because this operating system literally just came out yesterday. So when you're in the normal edit mode for a photo, Okay, we've got all of our little options here on the right-hand side. You will notice that there is now support for third-party extensions. Now, as of right now, we could not find any of them. I think it's just because it's too new. But this will open up certainly doors down the road. When they do, we'll probably do some sort of an updated class on our favorite extensions for photos. But as of right now, like I said, there's not really any options today. The next feature we're going to talk about is Spotlight, which got a few new changes to it. And if you didn't know, you can access Spotlight one of two ways. You can either go to the little spyglass you see here at the very top right-hand side of your screen, or if you're like me and you're a fan of hotkeys, you can do Command Spacebar, which will also activate it. The first change to Spotlight is now you can move it around. You're not locked to the middle of the screen, so if you'd prefer to keep it at the top right corner, you can drag it and drop it, and it will stay there. You can search within Spotlight now the same way you would communicate with a person. So let's say I'm trying to locate a document that I wrote within the last week. I can literally just type in documents I wrote last week. And there it is. Here's a PDF that we created. Here's my notes for this particular class, okay, and more. A couple other things you can do. Let's say I'm trying to locate an email. I can do the same thing. Email from Johnny. Okay, and there you see it there. You can do weather. And if you just type in the word weather, it's just going to be wherever you physically are. But you can also say weather in different locations. So let's say I want to see what the weather's like in Houston, Texas. Okay, there you go. It pulls that information. If I can put a little feature request out there with Apple, I wish movies had this kind of information. Can't really do that right now with movies. A couple other things you can do. Sports scores. So I can type in a sports team and see the most recent sports score, okay, and also upcoming schedules. Finally, even though it's not entirely on topic, I just want to give a quick shout out to a different class that we've created. Some of you have asked me what is my favorite app of all time. I'm a business guy. I'm not a gamer, so I don't really have any favorite games, but I think the most useful add-on app for the Mac, if you want to check it out, I'll include a link in the description of this video. But I love this little app that goes very hand in hand with Spotlight called Alfred, specifically because you have access to the clipboard history. So if you are constantly having to copy and paste different things and need access to past things that you've copied, make sure you check out that class. Once again, I'll include a link to that in the description of this video. All right, folks, what we're going to do is we are going to take a very brief commercial break. This is how we're able to keep these classes free for all of you. And when we come back, we'll resume where we left off and go over a whole bunch of other new features that you're going to find in the brand new operating system for the Mac, OS X El Capitan. We'll be right back. The next feature that I'm going to be showing you is split screen mode, which is in absolutely no way a feature that Apple allegedly stole from Microsoft. So this feature, when they first announced it, I thought to myself, why on earth would I ever need an app to run in 50% of the screen? I just think of that as kind of ruining the experience. But then I started playing with it, and I realized that there are certain simple apps that I tend to use together. For example, a lot of times I end up using my calendar with my email. I like to schedule things based on my calendar. So a lot of times I'm going back and forth between those apps, and that is, for me, where split screen mode is perfect. Now, there are two different ways that you can enable split screen mode. I'm going to show you both of them, but the one thing I want to do first is just make sure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to their settings. So if you will indulge me for a moment, I'm just going to go into System Preferences and recommend that all of you follow along here. Within System Preferences, the second line down, we have Trackpad. Now, for those of you who do not have a trackpad, for example, if you're on an iMac, you're going to do the same thing here, but in mouse. For the rest of you, go here into Trackpad Settings. And we have these three options here at the top. Make sure you're under More Gestures. And the middle option here is Mission Control. Make sure you have this checked, and the little animation that's playing to the right will show you how this works. You swipe up with 3 fingers, and it basically reveals all of the apps that you have. It just kind of separates their windows so that it's a little bit easier to sort through things. So make sure you have that enabled. Now let me show you the 2 different ways to activate this feature. So what I'm going to first start with doing is what I would refer to as the manual method. So I'm going to open up my calendar and also my email, so they're both on the same window. And so the first method is I'm going to put one app into half screen mode, and then I'm going to tell it which app to run on the other half. So normally, if I wanted my email here to be in full screen mode, I would click the green dot. But when you want it to run with only half the screen, you click and hold on the green dot. And when you do so, it's going to give you a little blue background. If I drag this to the right, you can see I can place the mail on the right-hand side. If I move it to the left and then let go, it's now running in 50% of the screen. This is very important. You have to have the other app open at the time. You cannot just, for example, go into Launchpad and launch it right now. It has to already be running. So now, if I had multiple apps open, I could click on whichever one. In this case, I have Calendar, so I'll just click, and voila. So now I have my calendar on the right-hand side, I have my email on the left. But sometimes you don't really need these to be, quite so 50-50. Sometimes you need a little bit more space over here, and you don't really need as much over here. So what you can do is this little black bar, you can actually grab it and click and drag it to either side, and it will readjust the size of the windows. It's not completely custom. It's going to kind of snap to certain conditions. Like this is the smallest that I can make the calendar here, but it still works pretty well for me. And like I said, in my case, I think this has been kind of the perfect solution, having your email and your calendar right next to each other. Some of you also might feel the same way about Notepad or iMessages. Now, the other way that you can trigger this is through Mission Control. So give me a moment while I set this up. So we're back to where we started. We have email here. We have our calendar here. But instead now what we can do is go into Mission Control mode. So 3 fingers at the bottom of your trackpad and swipe up. And now I can take either one of these apps and I'm going to click and drag it to the top right corner of the screen. So what I've basically done is I've just put Mail into full screen mode here. Okay, it's actually the exact same thing as hitting the green dot. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the calendar and I'm going to drag and drop it up here. And so that is the other method that you can use to enable split screen mode. The next few features that I'm going to show you all have to do with Safari. So for those of you who are not fans of Safari, you may want to skip this part. Otherwise, let me show you what we got here. So one of the features we have, you can see here at the top of my screen, I have 3 tabs open right now. I have the New York Times, I have Tech Talk America, and I have Amazon.com. If I want to go to these websites often, I could, of course, create a bookmark, but there's a new way to save it as well, called a pinned tab. And the way you do this is you're going to take the tab that's currently open and you're going to just drag it to the left. And you'll see how in the case of the New York Times, it shrinks into the little icon for the New York Times. I can do the same thing here now for Tech Talk America, and that's over there on the left. Now, I'm not going to do that with Amazon to prove a point here. The reason why you may want pinned tabs is when I quit out of Safari and then go back into it, you'll notice that all of the pinned tabs are still there, whereas the one that was open is now just back to whatever my home page is. While we're talking about saving websites, I do want to just bring your attention to something real quick. So we create these free classes for everyone all over the world to enjoy, and we really appreciate it if you show just a little bit of support to what we do. And we have 3 easy steps to follow so that when you purchase on Amazon, you can basically support what we do. You can find all the directions right here, techtalkamerica.com, and just click on the support us. It's totally free. It's the absolute easiest way to show a little bit of love to the guys who like to bring you knowledge and how to use all your various gadgets. We appreciate that. The next 2 features that we have here in Safari, have you ever had a problem where you have a YouTube video open, let's say, let me just launch one real quick, and you have maybe another website that opens in the background that also has audio? Okay, so I'm going to just launch a video here. I'm going to keep the audio down. If you look here at the top of the screen, we have 2 audio buttons. Check this out. We have a master kill switch here within the web URL bar. Okay. We also have a little speaker icon right here. So if I had multiple tabs open right now and there's audio playing from all over the place, it can be distracting to say the least. So if I click right here, okay, it's going to kill the audio to whatever's playing on that particular tab. Whereas if I click up here, I can kill the audio from all tabs that are currently open. And the final little feature I wanted to show you here in Safari is, let's say you have some sort of a article that you want to save. One of the things you can do now is if you go to the little share button, there is now support for both notes and reminders. Full disclosure, I'm not really a fan of either of those for saving websites. Personally, I tend to think that Evernote is a better solution, but then again, to each their own. Next feature we're going to talk about is Notes, which got a lot of the new features that you will also find in iOS 9, although granted not all of them. So one of the features is that now you can have folders of notes. So for example, you see the little folder structure we have here. I have a folder for class notes, recipes, shopping lists. Okay, and then within each folder you have the individual notes right here. I want to prove a point, by the way, something I just mentioned regarding why I don't like using Notes in combination with Safari. So let's say that you, watch this. So let's say you want to create a notebook of recipes, okay? This is why Evernote is a better solution. So let's say I want to save this recipe. You'll notice that if you do the share function from within Safari, okay, and you go to Notes, you will notice there is no way to tell it what folder this is supposed to go in. It's just going to create a new note, and it's going to be up to you to manually drag and drop it into that particular list, which if you do a lot of this stuff can be a pain in the butt. Evernote has that built in. Sorry, didn't mean to go off on a rant there. A few other features we do have here. Actually, I'm going to restore that so I can show you a few other features. So within Notes now, let me create a new one. We can use check boxes. Okay, so especially for something like a shopping list, you know, you might want to say milk, cookies, and taffy. I don't know why I put that, but you now have the checkbox options. So where this could be handy, I would tend to think, is if you decide to create a shared shopping list. Then again, there is another app that also does that, which I may or may not have just mentioned. Also, we have formatting options now here within Notes. Personally, never really cared about this feature. It's a notepad. It's not Word or Pages for that matter. So you do have title, heading, body, all that other good stuff here. You can also do bullet points and a numbered list if you're, just too lazy to hit one period space. Few other little features. If you do start to bring in a lot of attachments like photos, which by the way you can now do, that's what the little photo browser button is here. Again, I don't know why you would bring photos into Notes, but you can. What you can do is basically go to this icon right here, and you can sort all of your notes based on what kind of content it has. So you can see all photos and videos, sketches, maps, websites, audio, and documents. Okay, so definitely some interesting features. I don't know honestly how many of you will actually use a lot of these features. I just tend to think that there is already better software out there that does the same thing. All right, folks, we're down to the final few items here. What I'm going to do is just group a bunch of these together. So they are all different, but these are usually pretty minor changes. So the first thing I want to mention, which is really great for those of you who have an iPhone, is that now the calendar program also communicates with Apple Maps. So let's say, for example, I have a doctor's appointment, which is an hour and a half away, and there's a traffic accident in between there. Well, what will happen is my phone will alert me that due to traffic conditions, I should leave earlier in order to get there on time. So definitely a pretty cool feature for those of you who have an iPhone and also use the calendar application as well. The next feature is that you will notice, and my apologies in advance, this looks so pathetic. Disk Utility got a bit of a makeover. It's not Disk Utility that's pathetic, it's my computer. Dear Tim Cook, I need a new computer. I'm out of space. Next feature we have here is one that I probably should have mentioned earlier when we were talking about Safari, but you will notice that now, for example, YouTube videos have a built-in AirPlay button. So you can, throw this video on Apple TV without having to go through the normal process. You can just keep it this size, but on your television it would be full screen. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to the new Apple TV. Andy Grammer, you owe me once again for a free promo. Next feature is one that I was a little disappointed on. Usually when they come out with a new operating system, they tend to give us some amazing photography to go with it for different desktop backgrounds. Not so much the case this time. There are, no joke, two. That's one of them. That's the other. So you have officially two options. Go back to my little self-promo. Next feature, actually, I have to go back into System Preferences for, is that you will find here under General, there's an option right up here. It's the third item down, automatically hide and show the menu bar. So that's the white bar at the very, very top of my screen. Personally, I need so much constant access to that bar. I did not find this to be certainly beneficial. I found it to be more of an annoyance. But for those of you out there who might want that, you can check that feature out. One feature I did like is here under the App Store, you will notice that now for free downloads here at the very bottom, you can make it so that it will save your password. That's the other option right there. Also for purchases and in-app purchases, you can either do require or require after 15 minutes. Next feature I have for you here is one that I have to say is actually very cool. And for those of you who travel, pay attention to this one. So let's say you have somewhere in your computer, whether it's notes, maybe it's iMessages or the mail program, a flight number. Okay, so like I just actually guessed at this as being a flight number and I was shocked that I was actually correct. So watch this. So if I put my cursor over that, so UA would be United Airlines, 1820. See how this little arrow appears next to it? I can click on that and it's going to look it up and I can see that actually this is a flight that is, flying. I can see its status. It's going from Denver to, Gur. Don't you love Gur? Gur. It's awesome. Can't get enough of Gur. And I can see that it's delayed 15 minutes. Okay. So that works with any flight. Just a very, very cool feature that works pretty much across the board. It may work in more than just those 3 apps. I just haven't really played a whole lot with it. And that about does it for our class, folks. So a couple quick things here before we go. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do so by clicking that little button that just appeared on your screen. Hit that little thumbs up like button. We appreciate it. Check us out on Facebook. Links to all that stuff you'll find in the description of the video. And thank you for tuning in. This is David A. Cox with Tech Talk America. Class dismissed.